You guys can see me now instead of talking to a dark screen. So again, what we're talking about today is, how to really focus on the big picture in your career and not get bogged down in time wasting details. So you can show up and do what's really important and impactful, and then step away and go home and go live your life, right? So the two problems we run into is we either think we have to delegate a lot, and then we think, oh, well, our team's not good enough. We can't delegate. I don't have a good team to delegate to. My team's too junior. I'll hear this a lot. Well, I have a new team member, and as soon as they're up to speed, I'll be able to let them run with the project. And it's like, look, they're up to speed the minute they come on, right? So that's not it. It's not all about delegation. At the same time, women will say, well, Kate, but if I don't do it, who will do it? Like, the ball's going to drop. Nobody else is stepping up to the plate. It's always just me. So how do we stay focused on the big picture and not get sucked into these time wasting details? Okay. So there's a couple things you have to recognize. And you guys hear me talk all the time about human behavior, the science of human behavior, the science of human behavior. You have to understand what's going on in your psychology that makes you want to take care of all this stuff, right? If it feels good to you to have a to-do list, if it feels good to you to check off the boxes, if it feels good to you to see the beautiful Excel spreadsheet or the report with, the way everything is sort of laid out in the report, it has to look a certain way. It's going to be really hard for you to let go of the details. And so it's these habits, this way of thinking, this internal feeling that this feels good, that you have to really shift. And I just had this experience. My assistant just gave me an itinerary for an upcoming trip. And I love the itinerary. She's got all the information on there, but it's not quite in the format that I would do it. And there's part of me that wants to just start going into the document and changing the format. And it's like, Kate, stop it. Is this really going to move the needle at the end of the day if I have a better formatted itinerary? No. And I can always say to her, hey, this is really great. Can you make it a little bit easier to read and to shift up the format? And she would gladly do it because she's amazing. So my point is that we get caught up in the psychology of feeling like we're more valuable and feeling like we're important when we take care of all this stuff. Okay, so the opposite of that would be when you get burned out and you just start letting the ball drop, right? Now all of a sudden it's like, whatever. We'll just let balls drop right or left. And I see this a lot. We have, clients that we're working with who have pivoted so far to the other side. They've gotten so burnt out and so resentful in their careers. They're literally not even showing up to a point where they feel comfortable that they're delivering. Okay. So what you really have to do, and this is not a one time that you do it and then you forget about it. It's not a set it and forget it, right? Is what you want to do is always be looking at what is the goal? What's the objective? Why am I here? Why am I getting paid, right? Like, what is the value trade here in my career? What is it that I've been tasked with doing? And I don't mean go look at your job description, because job descriptions are miserable and they always have like a million things they want you to do. But what's really important to your company right now? What is the problem that you solve? And that is what you want to be solving all the time, okay? Now, the problem that you solve probably does not have anything to do with how well your Excel sheet is formatted. It probably doesn't have anything to do with a lot of these little things that popcorn kind of come up during the day. Do you really need to go to all these different meetings? Do you really need to get pulled into every question and answer session? No. And so that's when you need to be saying like, hey, great idea. I'd love to speak with you about that some other time. Right now, I really got to get focused on this. Or right now, I'm doing this. And you're going to be telling your boss that, your leadership team. You're constantly going to be telling people like, hey, I think we're over here. This is what we're working on, right? Okay, great. I hear that you want this too, but I am going to tell you that I'm recommending that we save that for later. We chase that ball later. We go after that later. And a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, thanks. Like I'll do this a lot with my bosses, right? So I work as a fractional CMO for several companies. And, again, the CEO is just like vision, 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 vision. He's got all this stuff that he wants us to be doing. And I'm constantly bringing him back to the end goal and saying, okay, this is the end goal, right? So are you saying that you would like us to put this end goal aside and start in this new thing that you just talked about? Or are you comfortable with the fact that that is something that we're going to get to later, right? And I stay really, really, really focused on the end goal, and I keep everyone around me focused on the end goal, whether it's my team, the other people, and say, look, let's not get too far in the weeds. Like right now, I have a client that's working on some new marketing campaigns, and it's real easy for them to, be re-looking at how the campaign was structured, evaluating who's opening every single email, evaluating every little piece. And I'm like, look, guys, we've got to stay focused on the big picture here. We can get down in the weeds later, but that's not going to help us meet the end goal right now, right? And so you want to be always thinking end goal, end goal, end goal, end goal. Why am I here? And so anytime someone invites me to a meeting, anytime someone invites me to a phone call, anytime someone says, hey, Kate, I think we need to be working on this, I'm always asking myself, if I'm doing this, will it get me to the end goal? Now, sometimes tactical stuff does get you to the end goal. Like earlier today when I was in a meeting, I brought up a problem that one of my clients is having. We're working on a seed round, and we're working on a pitch deck to get that seed round secured. And, I had to ask the question, I had to ask a strategic question that then required some tactical implementation. And I'm the only person that's available on this particular team to provide the tactical implementation. So I just signed up for some weed work this week. I'm gonna have to get down in the weeds a little bit, but that's okay because it's getting us to the end goal. And that's how I provide value on this particular team. And I'm okay with doing it in this instance because I'm the one that brought up the challenge. I'm the one that brought up the solution, and I am the best person to deliver on that. Totally cool with working on this particular area of the pitch deck. So those are the type of things that we get really caught up with. And what I see a lot is a very like all or nothing type of mentality. Either I'm going to do this project all the way through it. I'm going to get everything done or really make sure it gets done, because you feel like you're more valuable if you've got your hands in the pie. And what you really want to be doing, especially if you're in a leadership level, is you want to be touching about the top 5 to 10% of any activity. And then there's about 70 to 80% that other members, whether it's a subject matter expert, members of your team, other teams, whatever, they need to be integrating, right? And then there's another bottom, 10%, 15% that maybe you need to step in to review, to provide direction, to provide coaching, molding, mentoring, right? And so if you can kind of think of that hourglass, or whatever kind of figure, what is an hourglass? Yeah, an hourglass figure. So you're going to start a little bit at the top, touch the project, make sure you're giving great direction, make sure you're getting everyone on board with what we're supposed to be doing, that we're all invested, leadership team, leadership team, stakeholders, boss, whoever. This is what we're working on. This is the end goal. Okay, great. You're going to add your touch to that if you need to. Otherwise, you're going to be like, oh, I don't need to be involved in this. You walk out. But then you let everyone go do what they need to do. Make sure you've got the right people working on it. Make sure you're doing the part you need to do. And then you come back and touch it at the end if you need to make sure that what was said was done was done. Now, I'm a big process person, right? So one of the things that can scare us a lot of times is when you start adopting this type of approach. One of the mistakes that's often made is that someone will say like, oh, I'm not supposed to be in the weeds. And so we just pitch this general like request out to the universe, like, hey, can someone else do this? Not my job, is what you're kind of thinking. And you sort of run out the door because you don't really want to deal with the discomfort that this has for you, right? Because it's like, oh, I'm not being the person who's involved. So some mistakes that can be made is like not providing good enough direction, like the direction, the deliverables, the time frame, how often you want someone to follow up with you. Like that needs to be really clear. I know someone was in our client group was sharing something, was it last week or the week before? And they were saying that they had kind of done their piece of something and then asked someone else to take on the rest of it. But they never got confirmation back from that person. So she was in a cold sweat like all night long. Like, did they take it on? Did they not take it on? Is it going to get done? Is the ball going to drop? That's the type of thing you don't want to let happen, right? You want to say like, hey, Bob, can you take on the rest of this, and push this across the finish line? Let me know by 5 o'clock today. Otherwise, I'm going to find someone else to do this. So you want to make sure you're always closing the loop so that you're not leaving yourself hanging, sweating it out, worried about like what's going on. Does that make sense? Making sure you're giving, if it's your teammates, you're giving your team really good direction so that they know what the deliverables are, what your expectations are. What does success look like, right? If you are going to delegate. But if not, if you're just pushing things aside and you're saying like, I'm not coming to this meeting or whatever, well, what are you going to do? Hey guys, I've been in this meeting for 5 minutes. It doesn't look like this is really part of one of my key priorities this week. It's very important to me that I do find out the results. Will there be some notes from the meeting that I could read? Could I follow up with one of you tomorrow for 5 minutes after the meeting to get a quick recap? That type of thing, right? So you're always closing the loop and making sure that you are getting that loop closed, but you don't want to just, so my point is you don't want to just let the ball drop, right? And so again, psychologically, if you're not comfortable with creating this type of like win-win scenario where you're winning, the company's winning, we're focused on the big picture that we're supposed to focus on, you can let the ball drop. And then it's like, oh, I'm never going to do that again. And we go back to that familiar behavior, which is protecting yourself, saying, ooh, I messed that up. And what I would really encourage you to do, again, is once we get that psychology out of the way, it's like, well, we are going to make mistakes sometimes. And sometimes we are going to miss a detail, or we're going to miss, we didn't close the loop well enough. And so we just learn from it and move forward. It's like, oh, you know what? I could have, should have, would have done better on this project had I closed the loop better on some communication. And you just change it up next time, but you don't want to like go back to your old behaviors, which then says, well, you know what? At the end of the day, you better be responsible for everything. Because that is just not the case. Sorry, I was looking to see if there's any questions here in the group. So it is never, there's this sense that like, if you're the leader, at the end of the day, the buck stops there. And I mean, ultimately, yes, like if you're the CEO of the company, ultimately, if the company is failing, it does come down to your leadership, right? If you're the head of a department, if the department is failing, ultimately it comes down to your leadership. But that doesn't mean ultimately you have to do all the work. It means ultimately you have to show up as a true leader. A true leader's not doing all the work. The true leader's not the one who's scrubbing the toilet after everyone's gone home to prove how hard you could work. A true leader is making sure that you are nurturing and leading and coaching your team to be absolutely committed to the cause, to the vision, understanding how they can prioritize themselves, protecting them from burning out while you're protecting yourself from burning out, and creating a very highly effective team that comes in and does the job they're hired to do. Occasionally will work late, occasionally will not work late, and has that flexibility built in, right? Like that's what your role should be defined at, not as at the end of the day, if one of your direct reports skates out on you and doesn't show up or doesn't do the work, well, now you've got to stay late and do it. No. If one of my direct reports doesn't show up and do the work, then I am going to be sitting there the next morning saying, presentation's in an hour, you didn't get this done. What suggestions do you have for us, right? Like I'm calling them at night and saying, presentation's not done. We have a meeting at 9 a.m. What solutions do you have? I'm not sitting there typing it out. Are you coming back to the office? Are you getting this done at home? And then I'm counseling them and coaching them and saying, hey, look, because of the way you chose to approach this, I had to stay up till 11 o'clock at night to proof your work or see the final draft or whatever you want to call it, right? That we can't have that again, right? And then I'm setting a very, strict sort of boundary around like, this is how we need to work together for success. And so what I see a lot of women doing is they just get frustrated with that team member who doesn't show up. And then, well, now I just have to live with this. And they have all this emotion and they're so angry at the team member, but then at the end of the day, the project gets done, they do the presentation, and then they never go back and have the discussion with the team member that says, we can't work that way anymore. Like, that's just not acceptable. That's not helping you get to your goal of being the kind of person you want to be in this role. It's not helping our team achieve our goals. And it's certainly not helping me as your leader achieve what I need to achieve in this position. Because if I'm doing your job and my job, then I can't be effective as a leader, right? And so you got to always see what I'm saying. I'm like closing the loop, closing the loop, closing the loop. It's not just your job to do it. So does that make sense? So the first step, of course, in anything that I'm going to share with you is always, where's your mindset? Where's your psychology? Because if your psychology is based in fear, if I don't do it, the project will fail. Nobody can do it better than me. Nobody else cares as much as I do. Like all these things we tell ourselves. It's my job at the end of the day to get it done. If that's what you're telling yourself, that is fear. Again, that fear-based mentality I always talk about, which is I fear the ramifications of what's going to happen. And what I have found and works and what we teach and coach our clients on is, look, you have to master your own mindset first. You have to master your own psychology. And when you're mastering your psychology and you're no longer operating from a place of fear, but from a place of possibility, you're going to be looking at your career and the job in front of you and saying, how can we achieve this objective? Will this action, will this project, will this step help us achieve that objective? If I burn out and work 80, 90 hours a week and I'm the only person doing the project, am I training other people in the company how to step in and help out? Am I raising the bar and the caliber of the work if it's always just me? No, it's like the me show. That's not what any company needs. Am I really helping us get to the solution any quicker if I'm not allowing other people in to support this? You know, so there's a lot of excellent rationale for letting go of always being in control of every little detail, because you're not necessarily helping your company or your career if that's what you're doing, right? And so that's where that psychology comes in. You got to master your own mindset, bust through that. And then you've got to start practicing some of the strategies that allow you to duck and weave, that allow you to negotiate, that allow you to say, here's the ball that we're focused on. This is where we need to be, not over here buried in pretty spreadsheets or, you know, looking at every single detail. Some of that stuff isn't that important. 80-20 rule, right? So making sure that you're focusing on what's really important. And, you know, if you have a boss who gets really caught up in the details, then you're going to bring that to their attention. Hey, I hear what you're saying, that the spreadsheet's not the prettiest thing. It's not the easiest thing. We do have the data. So how about I pull out a few key points and we'll present this. If your boss is like, no, you have to reformat this in this amazing format, you know, then I'm giving my boss some options and saying, well, I can spend the evening reformatting that, or I could spend the evening doing this other thing that you really want. What's more important to you? They want the reformatting. That's great. Happy to do it. But you know what? This other stuff you want, there's going to be some pain involved. You're not going to get it. So if companies, if people, if leaders, if team members don't feel some pain, don't feel some consequence of their decision and recognize that they're helping to make this decision with you, then there never will be change. You will always be the workhorse. You'll always be slotted in that, oh, she gets everything done. Oh, give it to her. Man, do you see her spreadsheets? They're amazing. Like, and again, I'm not talking to, you know, worker bees. I'm talking to all of us. We all do this from the time you graduate college all the way up through your career, is we get too steeped in controlling every single aspect of the process instead of recognizing as a leader, you have to show up and influence the process. You have to show up and hold others accountable for their decisions. And you've got to help everyone, your team, yourself, your leadership, stay focused on the big picture. And so if you rewire your mindset to say, wait, my real role here isn't to drop balls, isn't to delegate, it's to do what needs to be done to keep focused on this big picture and get us across the goal line without imploding everyone's quality of life in the process, right? And again, quality of life doesn't mean we all work from 9 to 5. Sometimes we work till 11 at night. Sometimes we work on the weekends, and sometimes we work 3 days a week or 4 days a week and take the afternoons off, right? It needs to be flexible. It needs to be fluid, because at this point, if you have a demanding career, there's no such thing as like a 9 to 5 job, but it also shouldn't be a, 7 in the morning till midnight job every day of the week. Make sense? All right, guys. So I want to thank you all for showing up for this broadcast today. Hopefully we've shed some light, some new ideas on what you really want to be doing when it comes to staying focused on the big picture and not getting caught up in the weeds. Again, it's not about delegation. It's not about having a better calendar system. It's not about, just letting the details go and forgetting about them. Sometimes those details are important and those do get you to the big picture, and you do need to be more tactical. It's knowing when to choose, removing that fear-based mindset that keeps you sort of locked into that need to control, and just really helping everyone get on board and stay focused on the big picture. It can't just be you. It's got to be everyone, and you're constantly influencing that in your environment. So thanks again for being here. Again, my name is Kathleen Byars. I'm the founder of Corporate Women Unleashed, where we help executive women and women leaders who are rising in their careers learn how to prioritize their health, their family, and their life without having to step back from their audacious careers. If this broadcast has been helpful for you, please let us know, leave a comment, share it with someone else. And then let us know, if you're at a point in your career where you're thinking that it's time to step back or it's just too much, don't. Give us a call first, book a call with our team, and let's see what's possible for you, because we believe that everyone can have an amazing quality of life without having to step back from a truly challenging and audacious career. Thanks, guys. It's been great speaking with you.